Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a fantastic day so far. Today I'm going to be focusing on how contractors get paid inside of IR35. So I'm going to really be breaking it down and giving you some insights in terms of what this world specifically looks like. Now, of course, I think this is important to understand because if you understand what the breakdown looks like, then you'll be more empowered to, again, maybe potentially negotiate or have an appreciation for how the system works, etc., etc. And if you don't understand how it works, then you're just essentially blind to the whole system. And I'm trying to help empower and educate people within this portfolio career so they feel informed. So without further ado, let's get into it. So again, just going to break this down based on, again, the flow of money, breaking down what £500 a day looks like. And I chose that because, you know, it's a good sum of money. You know, it's good enough for most people. And also how we actually get paid. Now, again, you know, obviously £500 a day seems like a lot of money, especially if you're a permanent employee. But again, I'll talk about why £500 a day is not actually what you get paid. It is broken down into little different bits as well. So it's important to understand this specific diagram. Now, I've briefly spoke about this in my newsletter. I think it was in the dark side of contracting, so you can check that out. You can check out the video to get a different sort of like view in this. But essentially, it comes down to this sort of like breakdown. So of course, if you see in the first bit, when you sign up with an umbrella company, you are signing a contract with that umbrella company. Of course, the umbrella company works very closely with an agent, and also that agent works very closely with the end client and yourself as the contractors, as well as the umbrella company. So again, they need to get paid for what they're doing, and so they'll get some sort of commission that really, again, signifies their involvement within this. So, of course, they get paid for that, and you get paid based on completing a timesheet. So, of course, that timesheet is very dependent upon you filling it out accurately, regularly, and on time. It's also important to make sure that the line manager or hiring manager is also doing that as well. Because if that's not done and you're not filling this out, then again, you don't get paid. Of course, if you're working inside of IR35, you're going to use a timesheet portal. This timesheet portal is usually, it comes from the agent. Okay, so the agency that you're working with, the person who has found you the role. So if you've got any issues when it comes to portal stuff, you'd go to the agent. Of course, when it comes to processing the payment, that is done by the umbrella company as well. So that's essentially how it works. You know, and obviously in terms of payment, you get paid anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks in arrears. So that's good to know because, again, we can't be playing with payment. You know, obviously we're not doing this for banter for free. This ain't a charity, you know. So yeah, hopefully you understand this part. And now we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of what £500 a day actually specifically looks like. So again, you know, I said this before, £500 a day is not £500 a day. It's a lot of money, relatively speaking. I want to break this down. So what I really mean by that is, if we think about what £500 a day is pro rata, okay, let's say, for example, you are a project manager and, you know, you were a project manager within a permanent sort of like working capacity, pro rata, so over 46 weeks or whatever it may be, as a contractor, you'll get paid more. That's a fact. You definitely will get paid more if there was consistency in your work. But this takes into consideration the fact that you don't take any leave, you're not pregnant, and there are no gaps in your employment. Now, as a contractor, that is likely going to happen. There will be gaps in your employment, okay? You may take on contracts for 3 months, 6 months, if you're lucky, 12 months. But even then, there may be things that happen, such as, okay, budget was misallocated or early termination because of new policy changes and or the fact that you may not be delivering. Now, obviously, as a professional contractor, you're not going to do that. And again, if you want to learn more about how you can become a professional contractor, then check out the Independent Consultant, a guide to becoming a contractor within the UK. It's a comprehensive guide in terms of how you can successfully transition into this space. Obviously, no guarantees, but really highlights how you can do this professionally and properly, because I know a lot of people are scared to make that transition. Anyway, you can check that out below. But anyway, the point I'm making is that pro rata, you're going to make more as a contractor. However, that's not always the case. Now, you have to remember, if you're in this space, okay, this whole contracting space, you need to make sure that you act as a professional when it comes to your finances. You understand where you stand when it comes from a contract standpoint. So this is looking at your sort of like notice period and all these different things there. This is making sure that you have an emergency fund, etc., etc., etc. So bear this stuff in mind when it comes to sort of like contracting, okay, moving forward. Now, if we keep it moving, there's a sort of sequence that I want you to understand in terms of flow of money, okay? So if we look at the top left, so this is if you are watching the video, you'll see that the end client has an agreed amount of money they want to spend, okay? So let's say, for example, it's 50K as an example for 3 months for one person. That's how much they want to spend. And the reason why they'll bring in a contractor over somebody else is because they can bring someone in quickly. That is the advantage. You're getting speed, you're potentially getting expertise, and you're also getting an understanding when it comes to resilience, when it comes to this space. So bear that in mind. So if we move from left to right on the top, we also have the fact that this gross amount is obviously agreed, maybe budget-wise or whatever it may be. But this gross amount will include VAT and agency fees, okay? Everything is always usually inclusive of VAT and agency fees, and I'll talk about that in a working example in the next slide. And again, it's not necessarily what agents do and stuff. This is just giving you an idea of the world, so to speak, okay? If we move to the bottom to the left, okay, this is really edifying the fact that the agents will usually be sought through a procurement framework, okay? So there's specific procurement frameworks that bring about these different types of people, or through embedded relationships that have been developed through agents contacting these, different end clients, okay? So that really doesn't matter as long as it fits in with the framework of that end client's organization. So again, the final thing to say is that, once all of this stuff is done, the agent's sort of like responsibility and job is to make sure they find someone who is suitable, who has the right level of expertise. They'll check their CV and vet them through some form of informal interview. They'll act as the middle person to set up the interviews potentially, and all of this kind of stuff there. So it's in the best interest of the agent to make sure they found the best person. They don't want to waste their time. So if you feel like there are times where agents don't speak to you a certain way, of course, that is not excuse if they're rude, but they're looking for the right candidate. And of course, they want to make sure that maybe there's potential future work for you if you're not successful. Okay. Now, most agents are not paid straight away based on when you're paid. Maybe there are payment terms. So that payment term could be the fact that maybe the person needs to be in a contract for at least 30 days, as an example, or a couple of months, or whatever it may be, before they actually get released the funds. So there is a clause there so that, end clients have some sort of, assurance, so to speak, so they're just not throwing money out the window. Now, again, let me show you this example that I was talking about to give you some sort of idea. So this is very rough. This is not necessarily how it actually is, but this will give you an idea. So let's say, for example, in this situation, the end client, whoever it is, a public sector organization, is happy to spend 45K for 3 months for a specific assignment. So if you break that down using, 5-day working weeks and 20 working days within a month, then you'll get to a max contractor rate of £543.48 per day, okay, from Monday to Friday, 7.5 hours, or whatever it may be, okay. This is not taking into consideration any overtime, overpayments, contingency, sort of buffer payments, none of that stuff. This is just pure like for like. Now, of course, the agent will have this information and they will know that, okay, there is a certain caliber of contractor who will attract £543.48. So might as well knock it down to £500 a day. Now, that is typically decided at a hiring manager's end from an end client, depending on where they are. But that's not always the case. Sometimes the agent, potentially, and this is an assumption, they have the jurisdiction to decide the rate as long as that's agreed with the hiring manager, so to speak. And again, this is an assumption. So let's say the agreed rate is £500. The contractor is not willing to sort of like negotiate anything higher. So they're happy with £500 a day, for their contract. Now, of course, you have to remember that there's also agency fees, and the agent may charge 15% of the day rate back into their sort of like agency organization. So 15% of £500 is £75. Now, of course, this doesn't take into consideration the additional £43.48. Now, this is a grey area on my part, and I'll be very honest on this. Now, the assumption being made here is that potentially the agents can pocket that £43.48 and the 15% on top of that as well. Okay, or it's just the 15%. Let's just say in this instance, they just pocket the 15% on top of the £43.48. This is a lot going on here, but hopefully you're following me. This is all to say that as a base rate, the end client will pay £543.48. They don't look at that at all, but the agent and the contractor, depending on their negotiations, will determine how much the contractor gets paid and how much of the contractor's 50% rate the agent will get as well. Okay, and the calculation is there in pink if you're watching this on the screen. So in this instance, you got 15% of £500, which is £75. You got 15% of £43.48, which is the additional from the max rate, which is £6.52. Altogether, that's £81.52 that they're taking away per day. Okay, so this is, again, this is assumed. Now, if we keep it moving, if we add all of this together, okay, so if you add the 15% plus the rate of £543.48 that the end client is paying, you get to a total of £625. Of course, that all needs to be, that's all VATable, so to speak. Okay, so we whack on 20% on top of that, and 20% of £625 is £125. So 625 plus 125 gives you 750. It's a lot of maths going on right here, but you can pause this, you can look at this, you can try to type it in a calculator, try work it out yourself. You'll get an idea. This really helps you understand why it's in the best interest of the agent to make sure that they find you the right contract at the right rate. And of course, there are some organizations or some agencies, should we say, that only focus on a certain caliber because they're trying to hit a certain threshold and they know they have that gateway niche into the market, and so they can make that type of money. Okay, so this is all important stuff. Now, again, you know, the more you understand this, the better of an idea it gives you in terms of the potential behaviors that some of these individuals may have. So let's talk about how you actually get paid, so to speak, so to give you an idea. Now, of course, as an umbrella company, okay, you are in a situation where, you know, you take on board contractors who are working inside of IR35. So you would have heard of inside of IR35 and outside of IR35, okay? Now, all payments are made via a timesheet. And if you are inside of IR35, HMRC see you as somebody who is liable to be taxed like an employee. Okay, the only difference is you're not getting paid via payroll, so to speak. And this is an important distinction because a couple of years back, there were IT consultants or IT workers or project managers who quit on the Friday and started a contract on a Monday doing exactly the same work but getting paid double. Crazy. Under their limited company. So it's even more than double, so to speak, because obviously if you're working outside of IR35, then you're in a situation where, you know, you're getting taxed 20%, okay, corporate tax or whatever it may be, okay? And so it's more tax efficient, okay? The only other thing you need to think about is admin costs and all that kind of stuff there. But it's negligible compared to the taxes that an inside IR35 individual will get taxed. So the government was like, no, we need a differentiation because everyone's going to be quitting at this rate and they're all going to be working under their limited companies. So I can understand that point. It doesn't mean I agree or disagree. I just understand. Okay, I came in the game late, so I don't necessarily hold the same sort of begrudgance that other individuals may rightly hold. Okay, so once you understand that, then you can understand the difference between inside and outside. And so they're treated quite sort of differently, so to speak, in terms of responsibility, reporting sort of like duties, rhythm and cadence when you work and all that kind of stuff there. So it's very important that if you're working outside of IR35, you need to be able to prove that you're working outside of IR35 because you may randomly be audited, okay? So don't just take it just because it pays more money. I'm okay working inside when I work outside of inside IR35 roles. Talking very fast in this video, aren't I? Anywho, let's keep it moving. So if we look at this next slide, we'll see that here are some of the things that are taken into consideration when it comes to umbrella companies processing your payment. Now, as they are an umbrella company and under the eyes of HMRC, they are your employer. They are liable to pay national insurance employers' contributions and also pension employers' contribution. They have to pay their own amounts. Okay, so that's something they have to pay separate. This has got nothing to do with your pay slip. For you specifically, you have to contribute towards apprenticeship levy, which is like 0.05% of a certain gross amount. There's also employee national insurance contributions and pension employees contributions. There's also income tax, which I haven't included on here for some reason. Anywho, and you've also got umbrella fees as well. Okay, so that's anywhere between 12 to 21 pounds every single week, every time you get sort of paid into your account. Of course, if you've got hundreds, let's say hundreds of people under your umbrella company, let's say you're the founder, that's a nice little fee, can't lie to you. So let's think about this. Let's say you have 100 people, okay, who pay you 21 pounds every single week. That's 2,100 pounds every single week. So that's really, really important to understand, okay? So bearing that in mind, if you times that by 46, which is the average sort of like working amount of time, but let's be real, we're probably not going to be doing 46 weeks. It's probably going to be 23 weeks. As an example, let's just do that as a worst case scenario. That's still a lot of money that they're banking in their account. So that's how they work in terms of processing monies. Okay, very important stuff. So this is just giving you a high level understanding. Now, of course, there are advantages to working inside of IR35 under an umbrella. So number one is, it's seen as continuous employment. That's a great advantage, especially when it comes to the second point, mortgages. If you're trying to apply for a mortgage, if you've been with this umbrella company for 3 months at least, then again, you can apply for the same sort of mortgages that employees are applying for as well. If you're working outside of IR35, it's slightly different. If you're new to the game, you're going to need to do at least 12 months in terms of proving payment to a specific bank before you get a mortgage. Or, if you've been outside of IR35 or freelance for a while, you just need to show, again, proof of regular payments as well. So that's okay. The third point is, again, it helps you with regularity of payment as well in terms of cadence, because you're getting paid on a weekly basis. I mean, it's unusual to get paid on a monthly basis. That'd be a nightmare. Thinking about that now, that would be a nightmare. I mean, to know that I was paid monthly before is crazy. But again, these are all just changes to a portfolio career. So the weekly payment helps you manage your money and be more financially conscious. It should, at least anyway, because if you're not, and you're out of contract, you'll be out of pocket. And I can't help you, my friend. So those are some of the advantages that come into play when it comes to inside of IR35. Now, if I just summarize this for you guys, okay, here are 3 things to really remember. The first thing to remember is, number one, the flow of money involves agents, umbrella companies, and end clients. And it's your job to make sure that you're accurate with the information and encourage and usher people, your hiring managers, to, again, sign or prove the timesheets on time. The second thing is that £500 a day is not £500 a day. It's liable to all this kind of stuff. There is a gross amount, okay, that includes VAT and agency fees. I can range anywhere between 10 to 15%, but again, it may vary. Don't quote me on this. And of course, you get a certain amount based on what you're getting paid. The final thing is that, getting paid includes, again, if you're inside of IR35, getting taxed as somebody who is an employee as well. So national insurance, income tax, etc., etc. Okay. And of course, when it comes to benefits and all that kind of jazz there, you have to remember that, obviously you don't get the same benefits. Okay. You may get certain benefits with an umbrella company, such as pension and discounts to things, and maybe even sort of like free consulting sort of like opportunities when it comes to healthcare, etc., etc. These are some of the things that I have. However, you still have to be your own manager, so to speak. So for example, thinking about, again, number one, maybe getting a self-invested private pension, a SIP, or number two, potentially making sure that you have other sort of like insurances that cover you. It's very good to make sure that you have insurance, especially if you're working outside of IR35, but that can be a separate video. And so these are all some of the nuances and differences. Now, as I've highlighted before, if you're serious about becoming a contractor within the UK, then check out my course, man. Don't be afraid to check out my course. You know, it's all centered around how you can become an independent consultant. Okay, so this is a guide for people who want to become contractors within the UK. It talks about my experiences. It gives you a step-by-step sort of route to follow and transition from a 9-to-5 permanent employment into this contracting space, whether you're inside or outside of IR35. So if this is something that you're genuinely interested in, if you feel like you need to quit, if you feel like actually this whole space is not for me and I want to develop my portfolio career, then check this is for you, seriously. So click on the link below for more information. And as I highlighted before, you know, obviously I don't just focus on contracting, but I feel like this is really important given the time and scenario that a lot of people are in right now. But if you want to learn more about, again, portfolio careers or life management or positive psychology, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.